I think I'll start where Mr. Manavar left off. Whenever there is a function in this family, in this campus, I hope I'm minister long enough for all of it, but I'll certainly be the minister here for it. Because I must start by saying that in my case, third generation, and I hope by my children's time, the fourth generation, our families have been very close. And so it is both a deep pleasure and a privilege for me to participate in this event. I recall being here when the Science Museum was opened, and Mr. Manavar was here then also. And that was an amazing experience. I visited it before I came here. I'm sure that the Car Museum is no less, though I must confess I've never been into it. My family has, and they were so impressed. But this is one of those rare occasions where I've never been to the museum, but part of the museum has come to me. Because in the museum, I think there were some souvenirs that included part of my family. And so when we were compiling a book about my grandfather, Mr. Rajkumar was kind enough to give us copies of some of those, and we included them in the book. So I know there's some part of the museum that I've already seen second-hand. But my memories go back decades. I'm almost 60. I started going to boarding school up in Ooty at the age of 5, and I think every time we drove from Madurai to Ooty, we would pass through Coimbatore, and invariably we would stay for lunch at Gopal Bar, and a young Rajkumar would be racing around in his go-kart in the grounds. So I think my first introduction to the notion of racing or cars as anything beyond conveyance really came from my experiences going back there many decades. And I was just sitting and thinking here how these three are so intertwined with each other. One, the pursuit of industry and innovation in those days in manufacturing, in the automotive sector, in invention, related to G.D. Naidu. Among other things, we have a G.D. Naidu house in our compound in Madurai, as I told Rajkumar, because he had a conversation with my grandfather about how modular housing could be built at low cost to solve the housing crisis. And as always, instead of just talking about it, he built a few in our compound that still exist today, standing strong many decades later. So the notion of innovation and invention really finds its full function if it goes through to production and the development of commercial activity, leads to employment, leads to growth, leads to prosperity. But the same spirit of innovation is also manifest in the pursuit of excellence in things, in this case, in motorsport, in not just the racing of it, but the creation of high-end vehicles, the fine-tuning of them, the optimization of the maintenance network, the creation of an ecosystem actually. That's what pioneers do. Pioneers create cultures around them, create ecosystems around them. And so I think it was a great privilege for me to be here today to honor so many of the pioneers who have made racing in India, in Tamil Nadu, in Coimbatore, what it is today. I happened to be passing through town, I think a month or 6 weeks ago, and when Rajkumar said, I think you'd be the right person to come and honor the legendary figures of the sport, I readily agreed. I said it would be my privilege to do so. And so I'm very happy to be here to recognize what such pioneers do, what that means for generations to come. The third aspect, I think, is preserving history and never forgetting our gratitude. And so while events like these are important, the establishment of a permanent museum or a display, I think, is extremely vital, is intricately linked to these two previous concepts I talked about. And I can't think of anybody else who has been so meticulous about the design, about the implementation, about each display. And though Mr. Gopal speaks very little, I try and call him whenever I pass through Coimbatore. I know that his mind is working all the time and thinking of new ideas and new exhibits and new ways of explaining things to the people, showing things to the people, and inspiring generations to come. These museums, I think, stand tall. Though I'm a bit biased because of my personal family legacy, it's hard for me to think of any other similar set of museums or displays anywhere in Tamil Nadu, actually anywhere in India. For that matter, I traveled quite a bit around the world. I was an expatriate for 30 years. I'm not sure I've seen any family-run museum on these lines anywhere in the world that can compare. So it's a great asset to Coimbatore, as the collector said. It's a great asset to the people of Tamil Nadu and to India. And I'm very humbled and delighted to be a part of this expansion. I was just thinking, I actually happened to come and visit one of my, I was just at the CII event an hour ago, and saying for various reasons in this role, I've been to Coimbatore maybe 5 or 6 times in the last 6 weeks. And one of them I happened to pass through when some of these cars were actually parked in the garage of Mr. Gopal in his house before the tourism. And I was thinking the amount of planning and thought and effort, and of course cost it goes into to acquire these purely for the purpose of display, purely for the purpose of inspiration. Purely, and as Rajkumar was saying, that one of these cars has been stripped down to its parts, also displayed so that people can understand what it takes to put all these parts together. And I must confess, though as a child I used to have many children tinker around in the workshops and so forth, mostly because the cars of that day were so bad they needed to get serviced all the time, and the commercial production cars. But over the years I lost my interest, and though I was an engineering graduate from REC Trichy, I wasn't that much mechanically inclined. And I was surprised, about a year ago, I was invited on a tour of Europe and had some visits, and one of them was to a company called AVL in the city of Graz in Austria. And I spent probably 2 hours with Professor List, the younger Professor List, who runs it now, who I think his father founded the company. And in probably 2 hours, walking around and seeing all the innovation and everything, I almost got the enthusiasm back again of how I used to feel as a kid about the value of engineering and about the thought process that goes behind the last level of perfection and the continuous urge to improve. Of course, Austria and that part of Austria, Germany, have great cultures of excellence in engineering and design and execution. But in some way, I think through various collaborations with Germany, that particularly Mr. G. Naidu's family has had now for multiple generations. In Coimbatore, we get the closest to it. We get the training institutes, we get the apprenticeship program, we get the innovations into the science museum, into the car museum, and now with this recognition by fiva of inducting G.D. Gopal into the Hall of Fame, I think it's evidence of how unique and how valuable such efforts are for all of society. So for all these reasons, I'm humbled to be here. I'm privileged to present these recognitions to these veterans who have for decades defined the sport and created a following. And of course, as a friend of the family, I'm delighted to be a part of this function and any function I'm invited to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Your presence to honor these titans of the track is a wonderful endorsement of motorsport heritage. This museum is a collaborative masterpiece. We must also felicitate the incredible project team for their dedication. May I invite Mr. T.D. Rajkumar to do the honors. Mr. and Mrs. Sibi Veeramani of Kula Design Collaborative, Coimbatore, put together, curated this section to bring in a creative interior and posters which are informative and appealing. They have well chronicled the history of Coimbatore's motorsport. Mr. Arakil Sixtus of Winton Engineering, Kochi. The team, having a legacy since 1983 in metal fabrication and precision machining,
அங்கிருக்கு வலி சரி இப்படி தான வரணும் இப்படி வர மாட்டாரு அங்கிருக்கு வலி வயிறு அதனால இருக்கு வலி அவருக்கு வர்றதுக்கு இங்க இப்படி வரணும்